About a week ago, the YouTuber Gamers Nexus uploaded a video talking about all of his issues with Linus Media Group and their YouTube channels. But little did he know that there was something even more sinister going down behind the scenes at the Linus Media Group office, as after this video came out, it gave one of the ex-employees of LinusTechTips, Madison, the courage to come out with her story working there. She started tweeting about this when she says, "To stop the speculation and DMs I am receiving, I chose to quit my role at LinusTechTips because it and the work environment I was facing were ruining my mental health. The amount of daily items a social media role at the time was expected to fill was incredibly high. I was expected to post 3 tweets, 2 Instagram posts, and 2 TikToks minimum per day. I was expected to plan, film, edit, and post 2 Floatplane exclusives per week. This included wrangling people to be in them when they were also all struggling to get their work done. I was also expected to manage, plan, come up with, execute, get approval for, and schedule out all the sponsored content on socials, not including YouTube, all while being told not to complain because my job was the fun job. I cannot speak on what it's like now, but they have an entire team working on seemingly what I was expected to accomplish alone. I misspoke originally when I stated I had signed an NDA. I thought the employee handbook acted as one. I'm not a lawyer. I never publicly made any statements regarding my time there because I feared even more backlash from a community that was already attacking, defaming, and sending me death threats. I also feared for my future in this career given that LinusTechTips is large and has industry connections. My time at this company brought my mental health to an all-time low. You could talk to anyone who was around me during my employment and they would confirm it. I would not have recommended anyone I knew to work there, especially with my experience as a woman in the office. I was consistently belittled by certain members of upper management. My work was called dog shit. I was called incompetent. When I would reach out to managers and try to get help with these situations, I would be told to put on my big girl pants and be more assertive. It doesn't matter if you think I am or I'm not stupid. This behavior is not appropriate. After enough complaints from me, I was pulled into a meeting. In that meeting, the writer's room was pointed to, and I was asked, "Do you think any of these people would have had a hard time getting a job?" I said no. Keep in mind, this was about a month into working there. I was then pointed to and asked, "What about you?" I was scared. I remember asking, "Are you going to fire me?" I was laughed at and told to stop being so pessimistic, as if my job and ability hadn't just been vaguely threatened. I was then asked to agree to a verbal, no drama contract. The verbal part is important. In this moment, I realized I was no longer considered part of the team. I was now a threat because I was putting up a fuss when I believed I was being treated unfairly and inappropriately. This verbal agreement wasn't right. It was a behind-the-scenes warning with no record. I had asked and been told during my interviews that I would be allowed to monetize my YouTube channel and would be allowed to join Floatplane in exchange for shutting down my Patreon. Once I moved, I was presented with an entirely new contract/handbook that I was not told existed. It detailed that I was given incorrect information and would actually have to make changes to my plans if I wanted to continue being employed at LinusTechTips. This was after I had moved entire countries and given up my visa status. I couldn't just go back. Some corrections were made as apologies for the miscommunication, but I was still upset. I later went to Linus about this and stated that the effort to remedy the situation wasn't sitting right with me. He told me perhaps I should change my priorities. He was in this instance referring to the fact that my brother had suddenly passed away not even a week before I moved for this job, and that perhaps I should just ignore that I had been misled because that was more important. I cannot tell you how upset I felt in this moment. The opportunities LinusTechTips presented to me were nothing in comparison to the day-to-day issues I faced. It did not matter if I spoke to someone with evidence of an abuse of power or inappropriate workplace behavior. It was considered tattletaling. I was actually called a tattletale. I was told I was bossy when I was trying to be assertive, like I was asked to do. I was told I was arguing when I was trying to discuss my point of view. I was told to calm my tits, stop being such a bitch, and other comments to similar effects. There were numerous instances of misinformation being given to me purposefully to negatively impact my work. I only knew this because coworkers would tell me they overheard the actual information that I should have been given. It felt like a horrible teenage drama movie. Work from home was a whole issue. If you took 3 minutes to answer a personal email, you could get in trouble. Happened to me. There is a system of micromanaging and a level of distrust because the amount of content they have to push out daily is so insane. No one gets a break. I remember getting told off for taking my sick days, as in the days you were entitled to. This no days off grind set culminated in the real moment I realized I had to leave. I purposely cut my leg open so badly I would have to go to the ER to get it stapled back together. It was genuinely the only way in my mind to take a day off without being harassed for a reason why. I had spoken to managers about how I was struggling and how the workload was too much for one person, but I was belittled and told, "You just have bad time management skills." There are so many instances that led up to that moment. Some of them I have replayed over and over, asking myself, what did I do wrong? How could I have changed the situation? But I don't think I could have. I was not treated fairly, and in the moment, I couldn't even see that because I was told I was the problem by people I had looked up to for years. I had coworkers come to me saying, "I didn't like how you were treated, glad you got out," and only then did I realize it wasn't me. I haven't shared any of this besides my closest friends and family because I couldn't at the time take any more hits to my mental health. I couldn't deal with how small and worthless the job made me feel, all to push out some mediocre shitposts. I am still scared shitless of what the response will be, since I am a woman and have already been called dramatic. I'm not stating what happened to me because I am seeking clout. I am stating it because it has been eating away at me for 2 years. There are genuinely amazing, compassionate, and incredibly intelligent people who work at this company and are driven just to share the cool tech they love. It sucks that ego and a bottom line are slowly destroying some of them and hurting the entire reputation of the company. I didn't ever want to say anything for fear of hurting those people and their employment, but at this point I am hurting myself keeping this all in, while also being constantly bombarded with questions about Linus Tech Tips and jokes made at my expense. I have been patient and tried to ignore these comments, but some of you don't understand the mental anguish and nights of crying, feeling like I did something wrong and ruined my life, that I have had to go through. This was my dream job. I was at my dream job, and they spoke to me like I was nothing. I can't express to you how worthless I felt. They seem to hire young people who don't know any better for some roles, and then get away with this over and over. This wasn't just my dream job. It is a dream job. There are so many more stories of horrible things and shows of ego that I witnessed while working there, but I just needed to get out at least some of what I experienced because it has been 2 years, and every day I see people speculate is another day I'm forced to feel small. Also, meant to add, yes, that door glass review was me. It was, at the time, the only way I felt I could safely express anything that had happened, since any time I had previously tried, I would be crucified by fans sticking up for who they loved. The things said by Linus about talking to management and HR and promises about how things are handled internally were a gross misrepresentation of what actually goes on behind those doors. I remember he posted this in response to people speculating something wrong had happened to me, and if you read it, it pretty much says, "Hee hee, no one has come out against us, therefore we have done no wrong." She then shares this post that Linus made on January 6, 2022 in response to people speculating about Madison, where he says, "For obvious reasons, there won't be an official statement disclosing private details about my dealings with any of our current or former staff. You and Reddit can stop asking. On a separate note, no NDA or other agreement can prevent a Canadian from reporting workplace mistreatment, including but not limited to harassment, discrimination, or unlawful termination. They can post it publicly, submit a statement to the authorities, or do both for good measure. As long as it was true, it wouldn't be defamatory. If I'm ever actually accused of a crime or other misdemeanor, including any violation of employment law, I'm sure you'll be able to read all about it on Dextero. For now, it appears that we are in the clear." Madison continues her thread by saying, "When I read this, I was fuming with upset, because what a dick thing to post when you were at least partially aware of the treatment your employee was getting from your higher ups. But I don't know what I expected from someone who would mock others for not knowing who they were. I was asked about my sexual history, my boyfriend's sexual history, how I like to fuck. I was told that certain issues were sexual tension, and I should just take the coworker out on a coffee date to ease it out. I was asked to twerk for a coworker at one point. I was told I was chunky, fat, ugly, stupid. I was called retarded. I was called a faggot. And at any point I would bring up these comments, I would get told, 'Oh, we will have a chat with them.' Nothing ever came of it. The day I handed in my notice was when someone who constantly stepped over me, misled what I was working on and who I was, said to me, 'I think the reason you try to be funny is because you lack any other skills.' Smiled, then walked away. I quit 15 minutes later. It hurts when people compare where I am now to where I was then. Because yeah, I had a bigger audience. Yeah, I made more money on Twitch. But I didn't know if I wanted to even exist if the person I had looked up to could treat me and other people I respected like pawns. It sucks because that's what I had worked for years. I had tried to get noticed by this big company and this cool guy I respected. Because of that, I was willing to get shit on for that job, yelled at, and degraded. I was also the one tasked with managing the OnlyFans account, something I said I didn't want to do. I had to read comments from people talking about how they wanted to fuck me and my coworkers. I saw people's dicks and vaginas. I said no and was told only a little longer. If you want to say I'm just hopping on a bandwagon, that's fine. It doesn't take away the very real experiences I had, or that sharing these without current events would have gotten me persecuted for attacking a company most of you, until a few days ago, thought was perfect. They also forced me to have them as my representation when I wanted to take any sponsors for my Twitch or YouTube channels. Originally, I had been told, just make sure you okay things by us for non-compete issues. Then that changed when I moved to take the job. To be clear, this meant I couldn't seek any companies to represent me to brands for sponsorships, something important for making a living on Twitch or YouTube. But LinusTechTips also wasn't doing this for me. They were just going to take any traffic I gained myself, make a deal, and take a cut. I eventually got all the money back they would have taken when I called out that their calculations for the cut they should have been taking were being made before any of the supplies were reimbursed. Even though in the contracts there were a set aside amount for supplies. I am still angry for that year I was forced to sit under them, while they weren't doing anything a company would do to really represent you. And then somehow a big corporation gets the math wrong on how they should be paying you? I.e., a company is paying you $600, and $100 they are giving you specifically to spend on their platform for the content. The cut LTT was trying to take was of the total $700 and not the $600 that was the actual payment. I had to talk to multiple people before this was rectified. Also, apparently some managers didn't like me because I hadn't gotten drunk with them before, which was said in that haha just joking, but actually I'm serious tone. After I came forward about being assaulted, someone accused Linus of inappropriate conduct on Twitter. He came over to my corner and started berating her, calling her insane, mentally ill, an attention seeker, and just digging into this poor woman who had felt wronged by him. Also, remember the corner I was in. People would sneak up on and try to scare me. After the incident, I was nervous about this and requested a mirror so I could see behind me. I watched coworkers get what I asked for weeks before they did. It took 2 months to get mine. Similar things would happen whenever I requested anything. I needed more RAM installed in my PC for months because I was expected to edit red footage. It took 5 months and a writer being kind enough to do it for me when the numerous requests I sent in were ignored or put off. I would go to management for help and get told I could handle it myself. Eventually, I was pulled into a meeting for insubordination because I had gone around the system for requesting RAM after I was ignored for months, and dealing with my PC crashing and losing work daily. There was an incident where I requested a $15 notebook. Keep in mind, I had made maybe $25 of purchase requests in my entire time working at this company. I requested this notebook to help with my poor time management skills. Denied. You don't need it. You have lined paper. I was upset and responded back that this was different. No. Then BAM! Another meeting, Madison. Why were you rude and non-communicative with this manager? I didn't mean to be. I was told no. But then I got in trouble because they said they didn't know I was still upset. Cut to me being at my desk and I get a message saying, I did not know you were still upset because you never emailed me back. They had lied in front of the big boss to make me look bad. And worst of all, I knew if I brought this up, I would be the one getting reprimanded for tattling. There were also numerous times I would be asked why I couldn't just check up on socials or do little jobs during the weekend because it's social media. So is it really working? Imagine telling someone in 2021 social media isn't a real job. I'm sure there will be more things I remember and wish I had mentioned in this thread in the coming hours, but for now, please don't attack individuals who don't actually have power at this company. Most of them are blameless or powerless to actually change anything. Also, why didn't you take legal actions? I had just quit my job, was scared shitless of this company, felt like I was worthless, and personally, I don't have millions of dollars to throw at legal fees. When I left, I was told they would announce I had parted ways from the company on WAN show. I said no, unless you make sure you clearly state that I quit. They then never mentioned it on WAN show. I've heard that HR meeting recording, and please note how all the allegations that the management heard are referred to as drama. Imagine how you would feel trying to say anything when That is the exact response you would be given. In that recording, you will hear someone make inappropriate jokes. You will hear the situation be belittled. You will also hear that there is an internal want for you to go directly to whoever wronged you and have a one-on-one chat, removing any sort of HR interference. Imagine someone calls you dog shit, and the response you get is, oh no, go talk to them about it. But it keeps happening and there is no record of it because you were instructed to just go talk to them, not HR, who also just happened to be an active owner of the company. I'm baffled to hear about the shock of these allegations. You were not shocked that they happened. You were shocked that someone said something. You were probably shocked because you know the evidence for most of these issues is scarce. So why would anyone risk their image to speak out? Now that's about it for Madison's thread, but in this thread, you may have noticed that she mentioned a leaked recording of a LinusTechTips HR meeting. So before we continue on to Linus's response, here is that leaked call.
So we called this meeting because it's come to our attention that we need to have a quick chat about the best way to handle HR-related feedback and rumors. We won't be giving any names for what I hope are extraordinarily obvious reasons, but what we can do is give you the following guidelines for problem solving and conflict resolution. Sorry that this is all boring and corporate, but here we are. Number one, always stand up for what's right. We're only a team as long as we're all working together and looking out for each other. That's the most important one. Number two, always reflect on your own personal experiences and use your common sense. Few things in life are truly black and white. Number three, always wait to hear both sides of a story before passing your own judgment. Be cautious when you know that one side is bound by legal and ethical disclosure guidelines when the other is not. Carefully consider what it says about the character of someone who would engage in that type of gossip against someone who has no power to defend themselves. Number four, always encourage openness and transparency. If you have a problem, you need to speak up. We want to fix it. If you receive feedback about somebody else at this company, the first response is, have you spoken with this person? Followed closely by, you need to speak with this person. We don't solve interpersonal issues here, or really anywhere in your life if you wish to live in a drama-free zone, by engaging in water cooler politicking. So if for any reason that individual is not comfortable approaching the person they're having a conflict with, we have a chain that they're supposed to follow. So first, you advise them to take the problem to their manager, followed by me or Yvonne, followed by our third-party HR firm. I hope that you all trust that we're here to make this a safe, fun, and productive workplace, and we won't tolerate mistreatment of any of our team members. If you have any reason to believe otherwise, then I refer you again to point number 4, which is to address the issue with the individual directly, or bring it to me or Yvonne, or bring it to our third-party HR firm. Since I'm not at liberty to share any details about what occurred, all I can do is ask that you trust me and Yvonne. Some of you know us very well, and have been here a very long time. Some of you have not been here for as long, but I like to think that whether you've been here for 9 years or 9 days, you're here for a reason, and you believe that we do our utmost to run this company with integrity and compassion. We can't solve problems we don't know about, though. So on that note, I'd like to invite anyone who has concerns about a fellow team member or about a manager to submit their feedback either by speaking with their manager, with me or Yvonne directly, or if you would prefer to provide your feedback anonymously, we have an option for that as well. It's the manager and coworker feedback form. Yvonne, if you're not aware of it, show of hands who is not aware of it. Okay, a lot of people aren't aware of it. Good. So now we all know there's an anonymous form. If for whatever reason you're not comfortable even talking to me or Yvonne directly about it, and that's fine, we understand. That's why we have these options. Yvonne's going to post it in the general chat. It's a just safe space to provide us ideas for improvement, or if you're consumed by the holiday spirit and you want to say nice things, you can do that too. Does anybody else have any questions? Not a single question? Wow, that must have been a really good speech.
You gonna dance on that table or just stand on it?
So now that we've listened to all of that, let's take a look at how Linus responded. He tweets out, "We are taking Madison's allegations seriously. We are conducting an internal assessment alongside bringing in a third-party investigator to look into the allegations. We are committed to publishing the findings and implementing any corrective actions that may arise due to this. Thank you for your patience, and please allow us the time necessary to be as thorough as possible in this investigation. In addition to our existing report systems, both anonymous and otherwise, we've proactively reached out internally today to encourage our team members to report any workplace bullying or harassment they may have experienced so we can take quick and decisive action. These allegations do not align with our company's ethics or the values we preach internally. We aim to provide an inclusive work environment, while everyone can feel comfortable and, more importantly, safe. So the next day, Madison revisited the part of her thread where she was talking about the employee contract and says, "I have seen confusion with this statement and would like to clarify. After a public post was made that I would be getting hired, I was sent an employee contract which I did read over and sign. But the post had been made before I had seen the contract or salary being offered. It's an unfair position to be in as a prospective employee. It makes negotiating your employment very odd when now millions of people know you were supposed to get hired and would speculate on why it fell through. I made the choice to sign because, again, this was my dream job. At the time, I was willing to write it off as just a weird thing that happened, but now I know it also goes against BC law to publicly announce someone is interviewing or has applied for a position in your company without their permission, which also happened multiple times on WAN show. It was announced I would be applying for a role I never publicly shared. Then a week later, oh, she didn't get that job. I was even asked during the interviewing process to not speak about it publicly. Then I would go online and see, oh, that choice was taken away from me." And that's about it for everything in regards to Madison's allegations against LinusTechTips. And to insert a bit of my opinion, as I'm in a very unique position with this situation, being someone who knows almost nothing about LinusTechTips outside of his name and the fact that he's the biggest tech channel on YouTube, as well as someone who recently toured their office a couple weeks ago as part of an event they were putting on called LTX. This is basically a convention for LinusTechTips, and one of my YouTuber friends ended up inviting me to it because I locally live in the area where the convention and the office is, the convention being in Vancouver, the office being in Surrey, and me living in Abbotsford. So I joined my friend on this tour with a bunch of other YouTubers that I had no idea who they were because they're all in the tech community that I'm not familiar with, and while the people who were taking the tour with me were really cool, I definitely got weird vibes from the staff and the environment. I could be over-exaggerating that in my head because of Madison's statement, but I do remember the staff there being more dismissive of me than the other people, probably because they didn't know who I was. And while being in the workplace in a touring environment for 2 hours isn't nearly enough time to corroborate any of her information, especially when I wasn't looking for it during the time I was there, with everything I did see, I just do straight up believe Madison. I'm just gonna say it. I know making claims like these, if they're not true, can get me in trouble. It's just that with that HR recording in combination with me seeing how the staff are and how the office is and how people in this industry are with dealing with controversy in general from running this YouTube channel for the last 4 years, I just personally believe that all of this is true. But of course, that's just my opinion. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on, leave a like, and with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.